Free Flow Friday, powered by the Property Profits Real Estate Podcast. I'm Dave Dubeau, and I'm very excited to give you an over-the-shoulder learning experience around raising capital, as well as other tips, tricks, and strategies to help you on your real estate investing journey. So let's start. Let's discover together. So the next idea is, instead of just being booked on other people's podcasts, to have your own podcast. And I tell you, you guys, I've been in the marketing business for a lot of years now. This is one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time for content marketing. And we've been doing the Property Profits podcast since 2018. So we're going on 3 years now, over 200 and whatever episodes that we've had released so far. And this has been really, really beneficial for me. So before I had the podcast, it was always a matter of, okay, crap, now I got to come up with more content, right? Content. I got, what am I going to talk about this week? How many different ways can I talk about the same thing? And I can, and you do. But I did that for a long time, you guys. And quite frankly, I was getting tired of it. So when I first really started taking a look at podcasting, one of the main benefits from my standpoint was that this is a great way to create good, solid content for my list on a regular basis. And the best part is, I don't need to create it. I get smart guys like Ben. I get smart guys like Alan, like Kevin, like Elena, like the other Alan. I get smart people on my podcast talking about what they do, and they create the content for me. Does this make sense, you guys? Now, here's the other thing. The other thing I realized is, your podcast does not have to be an hour long. In fact, the first guy I was following about podcasts, his podcast is 7 minutes long. And I went through that and I said, that's too short. You don't have enough time to really get into much of anything there. So I decided, I made a conscious decision that my podcast, the ideal time is between 15 and 20 minutes for me. Other people prefer longer. That's fine. Myself, I like 15 to 20 minutes because we don't spend a hell of a lot of time on the backstory. We jump right into the nuts and bolts of things. And my whole goal is for the listener, the follower, the watcher, the viewer, to come away with at least one golden nugget of useful information from that interview. So huge, huge benefits there, you guys. So the other big benefit for having your own podcast is it's another way for you to be seen as an authority, right? Dave Dubeau, host of the Property Profits Real Estate Podcast. That sounds pretty cool. Sounds authoritative, right? There's lots of people that have podcasts that are seen as authority. So this just naturally throws you in the same boat. It's kind of like having a book, being an author. You're automatically assumed to be an authority if you're an author. Same thing if you run your own podcast, right? Great way, just like Ben illustrated, to attract investor leads. Like if you have your own podcast, in a certain way, it's even better than being interviewed on other people's podcasts, because it's another way for your followers to hear your voice and get your message on a very, very regular basis. So great way to attract investor leads, a great way to grow your audience as well, because when you do this right, you're interviewing sharp people and they're going to promote their interview to their list, right? And that, if you do that right, that'll help you get more subscribers, more followers to your own podcast. It helps you build that trust with your own audience because they're hearing from you, they're Netflixing on you, they're hearing from you on a regular basis, right? Helps create that instant credibility. And again, one of the big benefits for me, creates that content. So this is another marketing piece, right? If you're doing so for example, Ben, you're doing blogs all the time. That's great. Don't stop doing that, especially if you enjoy writing. But if you, or it doesn't even have to be you, or somebody else on your team is good at interviewing, then it's another fantastic way to create that content for your list, right? A fantastic way to do that. Another way to promote yourself, maybe and indirectly your deals. Depends on how you do that. Got to be a little bit careful about that, but it is a great way for you to promote yourself. And let's say that maybe not directly promote your deals, but encourage people to book that call to have that conversation, that get to know you call, that book a call type thing, right? And it's another great way to connect with amazing, amazing JV partners. And I don't just mean JV partners in the sense of other investors, although you'll probably find those there that you're interviewing, but also cross-promotional partners, people that you can work with. So for example, for my business, I would suggest this year, probably 70%, give or take, of the business we've generated has come from people that I have met through podcasting as joint venture partners, promotional partners, right? So very, very, very strong. So if you were to have your own podcast, here are some of the folks you could consider having as your guests. So especially when you're first getting started, I would definitely interview each one of my power team members, right? That just makes sense. They're going to love it because that's more exposure for them. You're going to love it because they probably haven't been interviewed before. So you can probably really encourage them to get the word out about their interview on your podcast, help build up your audience, build up your followers. Plus, it educates your prospects, your target list, more about your power team members, educates them more about what you're up to, and it's not just you as a one person show. Have yourself as a guest. Now, it's kind of hard to, unless you've got multiple personalities, it's hard to interview yourself, but you know what I mean? You can have a one-sided conversation, or you can do stuff like this. This is what I love to do. So you guys are probably aware that I take chunks out of these brainstorm sessions. I record this and I take chunks out of this and I turn those into podcast episodes, right? So you can do stuff like that as well. You can interview your investors. That's pretty smart, right? So talk to them a little bit about themselves, their background, and all that kind of stuff. And then it turns into a rolling, if they're happy with you, interview the happy ones. If it turns into a rolling testimonial for you, right? So you can interview your investors, other real estate entrepreneurs, other folks who are doing cool things in real estate, but not necessarily raising capital for it. You can talk with them. Everybody loves to get asked to be interviewed on podcasts. And here's another cool thing, you guys. This is a shortcut to you meeting high-level people. Even with a small podcast, you can get some quote-unquote celebrity guests, right? It's not that tough to get somebody like Grant Cardone, like Robert Kiyosaki, like these kind of people onto your podcast, even if you don't have a huge list. Now, how cool is that, right? If you can meet some of your heroes and interview them on your podcast, that association, a little bit of that rubs off on you. Does this make sense, you guys? So if you've got a platform, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about creating a platform for yourselves, and that's what a podcast is. People that you want to meet. This is a great way for you to open the door with people that are kind of hard to reach, right? So you could interview people that that might not pay attention to you otherwise. They will if you got a podcast. All right. So over the years, between back in the day when I used to be doing my podcast interviews used to be done on CD, for crying out loud, you guys, before we had podcasts. So I do a monthly audio CD success interview, which was part of our membership program way back in the day. And we burn CDs and ship them off to people and all that kind of stuff. So between that and the podcast, I've interviewed a lot of different, usually real estate focused type gurus, that's for sure, but a lot of interesting people. Okay. And then again, there's so much flexibility about how often your podcast should happen. I've seen there are people out there that do daily podcasts. I cannot fathom that. That's just way too much overkill, if you ask me. But there are quite a few people that do daily podcasts. But you don't have to. I mean, you could do once a month. You could do once a week. You do twice a month. I would suggest once a week is a pretty good rhythm. I kind of like that one. Twice a week is what we do, but that might be, you got a life in addition to marketing, so that might be a bit of a stretch there. And it all depends on your goals and your time. But here's the thing: the nice thing is, you can batch these interviews. So, for example, at this particular time, we have enough podcasts batched that I think we're good until the middle of January. I think we've got 3 months worth of supply, if not more, of podcasts that are in production ready to come up. So you can batch them up. You don't have to, don't do them onesie twosie. Well, don't do them like right before they're supposed to come up. Does that make sense, you guys? So in fact, what I'd suggest you do is you launch with 4 or 5 ready to go in the hopper before you even let people know that you've got your podcast out. So then you launch it and you know that you've got a month's worth ready to go. Okay. And then here's the secret sauce. This is one of the things I love about podcasting. And that is leveraging your own podcast to get interviewed on other people's podcasts, doing podcast swaps, right? I interview you, you interview me. We both benefit. So this is another one of the reasons it's been so easy for us to get interviewed on so many different podcasts, because almost all podcast hosts would also love to be interviewed. Well, hey there. Thanks for tuning into the Property Profits podcast. If you like this episode, that's great. Please go ahead and subscribe on iTunes. Give us a good review. That'd be awesome. I appreciate that. And if you're looking to attract investors and raise capital for your deals, then I'm going to invite you to get a complimentary copy of my newest book, right back there. There it is. The Money Partner Formula. You can get a PDF version at investorattractionbook.com. Again, investorattractionbook.com. Take care.